start. Hi, I'm going to show a thing called OS Xanum, which is a kind of basically a low resolution, low tech kind of video and animation tool. It started life as a Java applet. In fact, this version was featured last year in README, but I don't think it got shown. My kind of interest in doing it was really very simple. I was just interested in the most kind of basic materials that make up a digital image, which is pixels and code, and making a piece of work that kind of foregrounded those. So the first piece basically started off as this kind of black rectangle you see there. The top half is a raster display, which is something like 32 by 24 pixels, but blown up in size. And then below the white line is a command line input where you can code it. And it has its own very kind of simplistic scripting language. And apart from me, I was just interested in playing around with my own scripting language and making that. So it has commands like this. Just draws an image on the screen. The applet allows people make up their own animations and store them. So I'll just show a couple of things that people made up. That one's called Gonk.
Oh, right.
This is a more pretty one. And this is a kind of classic. Okay, so that was the first version, and then kind of after that it started to kind of grow up a bit, and it became a kind of standalone application. And so it took on some more capabilities. Well, it's not going to go away. The aliens have taken over. Okay, so I'll show you the standalone version. With this version, I said it can either run from a conventional terminal as a command line piece. Yep. Or it can run in its own display, which I'll show you in a second. So in the kind of more grown-up version, the scripting language changed a little bit. But basically, it's all very simple commands that always follow a very simple format. So the one-line commands, it doesn't allow for any kind of structured, nested structures or anything like that. So it's a bit like assembly language in that respect, or like early versions of BASIC. With a newer version, there's a few kind of things added in. I kind of became quite interested in the idea of the command line as a kind of basic interface and how you use that. And in a way that relates quite well to some of the discussion of live coding that we're having. For all its simplicity, this is capable of doing a kind of live coding type work. So there's different kind of modes you can put the command line into, a bit like VI edit. So I created this window called W1, asterisk W1. See the prompt changes, and when I opened the window I had to type W1 open. Now every command I type will automatically apply to W1. So blah blah. Like you could put it in commands, it just kind of abbreviates it slightly, and then just put full stop to come out of that. Another option it has is to create a simple text buffer in the command line. Just do carry and then a name that you're going to name your buffer. And then you can type a series of commands to store. So a simple program. And I can create a runner. A runner is kind of like, obviously there's a main parser, but you can create new parsers that run separately, which are called runners. And these have the capability of being defined. You can add your own macros into those to have local variables attached into them. And they have kind of timing functions and schedule functions, so you can build up a schedule events, which is almost kind of like a score or something, in something like Flash. It allows you to very quick, just from the command line, type up a series of events that will be triggered over time. Or you can just loop something. Oh, okay, we'll put an error in there. Oh yeah, I forgot to create this. Okay, I will come back to this to show this properly in a second. Put it into the Windows version to show you a bit more detail. I'll show you that again, working properly later. Okay, in the Windows version, it brings up a screen like this, and it's still really a command line application. This bit up here is the command line still, and then the area below is basically a console to dump out messages in response. Down here you have a kind of a browser listing that allows you to get more information about what's in there. So this left column has kind of some headings of key types of information. System links into here. Anim is a list of all the basic commands in the language, which are all here. And then filters is a list of graphic filters you can make use of it. Interpreters are a kind of filter, but rather than ones which have a graphical application, they allow you to do other things like generate sound from an image or stuff like that. And then renders are for rendering the graphics. Because it's working with this kind of low resolution style of the pixels being blown up, one of the things I started exploring with it was the idea that pixels could be represented in a different way. Just in some way relates to the whole idea of non-photographic rendering, but really it's also kind of, some of the stuff is quite old school, like ZX Spectrum style graphics or Atari graphics, and some of the stuff really goes completely away from the idea of a video image as a photograph. Someone's there. Filters, interpreters, and renders are all plugins. It's possible to create these as plugins. The basic language for this version of OS Anim is Java, and provide a template file along with the system that you can create a plugin in. Now, there's a lot in there, but most of it you can ignore. But it's in there, so if you want to make a more sophisticated one, you can. But basically, you can take a template for a plugin and just go into this area here. And here you can start to play around with the pixels and the ways that they're displayed. It's quite a simple system to use. Most of the renders that are currently in it were made by a guy called Ricardo Cremers, and there's other ones by one called Eleonore Reggio. Both of them had never done any Java programming. In fact, Eleonore had never done any programming before they did stuff for OSN, and they're both able to quite simply make these kind of renders for it. So it's very simple. Objects menu contains a list of objects that are created when you start working with it, and the network is for network connections, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I load this script. Okay, and that loads in a pre-built movie. And if we go to objects, we can see a list of all the objects created when that script was run. If you let your eyes go out of focus, you can see a bit more clearly. And when you click on one of the objects in the object listing, you get the commands it has available. Plugins can have their own commands written for them, which all get loaded into the system along with the plugin. So there's one render already built. To apply, you just use a simple command like this. So that creates kind of render, a bit like the paint render that Gabriel was showing yesterday. One of the differences, because the thing is such low resolution that it works well, it's instantly quite fast. Other renders are stuff like this. In the window version, you can go in and double click on items to add into the command line. So that's an old school render. And there's ones that list, which I think start to get a bit more interesting. And all that's really going on here is that the value of the pixel is taken as a parameter that rotates the square. Let's show this one. And then this one's just mapping the different color ranges across the image and then drawing lines between pixels of a similar car. That's quite simple. You can also composite layers in it. This one. Okay, so this has taken, it's drawn some background images and 3 layers on top and loaded little sentinel creature from the aliens is a separate movie loaded on top. And here we'll try this again. So I'm now running a script in a loop which basically animates the thing. So you can set up quick little animations like that.
Can you be running a render while doing that sort of thing?
Yeah. You can also composite several of the renders on top of each other. So we'll start this.
Can you have multiple users in the same space?
Yeah.
So I could be running scripts in the same.
Yeah, they have peer-to-peer capabilities. There's the network, two aspects of the network, which I was going to come on to in a second. So I'll just finish describing this. I'll talk into that. So just to explain what's in here, you've got actually 3 layers, each of which has a different kind of rendering style. So in the background, we've got the guy dancing, which is in the kind of just the straightforward blocky pixels. Then on top of that, we have another movie which is being rendered with the lines. And then on top of that, we have a blank one which can be drawn into. And it has a different render applied to it. So it's got like the Atari render on it, so you can composite the different renders over each other.
But they can refer to elements in one another.
What?
The different levels have access to the data. Each level can, like, you can
use the same video stream.
You can use the same base.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do stuff.
So that square could be following the dance.
Yeah, you could skip stuff like that. Due to part of the kind of simplicity I was interested in, the whole thing works in a 256 kind of palette-based system. Oh my god. And so you can also load color tables into it. So we'll go to and we can get this really kind of nice garish 80s kind of video stuff. Okay, right. Over time, but I'll go into the networking part. The networking capabilities, two aspects to its networking capabilities. It can do peer-to-peer system. The peer-to-peer system is based upon the Juxta libraries, which some of you might be familiar with. They enable what's called zero-conf networking. So if you set 2 of these clients up on the network, they will automatically find each other. And then the communication between clients works on a sort of channels principle. You create a channel, and other clients can join that channel, and then you send messages to the channel. The advantage of that is, like, for example, you could have one person creates a channel, and say 3 or 4 clients join it, and then you can control all of those clients from the one set of commands just by sending them to the channel. And then you can create different types of channel to, in a way, sort of filter the way the messages get handled. So you can use it in a kind of clustered sort of system, and that way, or alternatively, multiple people could share stuff across the different channels. It also has streaming built into it. Open a stream in that window. I open the second window, and that's obviously I'll take my word for it, running on a local machine, but that's string the data from W1 to W3, and you can also kind of draw it into W1. And all that just gets transmitted. It's a very lightweight protocol. Lightweight codec. The system has its own video codec, which are built to go along with the kind of low res, low tech quality of it.
It's got compression
No, you could apply compression very easily, but the image is so small.
in it. I know,
Even on a
it'd be
4
nice.
baud network, you can
Yeah.
send quite happily like
Full
20
frame.
frames a second. Yeah, and on the website for the project, there's actually a description of how the codec's built. So if people want to, another reason for doing my own codec for it, I was quite interested idea that it could be something that people could take and mess around with and play with, and change the idea of what kind of data goes over a codec, which you can't do with most existing codecs. Maybe lastly I'll just show this.
Got a typo.
Sorry?
Got a typo.
That's a special command. You just read it with more effort. This is the wrong one. Okay, it also has kind of basic sonogram type qualities to it, so you can start. So if you have the 2 dots running across the bottom, you turn it down. So that's using the audio listener. Basically, you can connect an oscillator or some kind of sound producing unit to one of the pixels or more of the pixels and map the pixel values to things like frequency or amplitude and stuff like that.
So that's JSON.
Pardon?
It's using JSON essentially.
Yeah, it uses the JSON plugins. For where it's using external libraries, I've also built it that there's wrappers around these that abstract that from the underlying system. So you can run it on different platforms. For example, it's got QuickTime stuff to enable live camera input on OS X, but I'm working on video for Linux wrappers that enable it to work on Linux as well and have live input on Linux. And it runs quite happily. I've got an old Toshiba satellite at home running Debian, and this runs on there very happily.
And have you got some of those that you imported to the video formats? You've got libraries for handling lots of different types of
On OS X, I can use the QuickTime libraries.
Does that handle all
And
those?
for the Linux, I'm looking at use the FFmpeg wrappers for that.
There's another question? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What me interests is why did you start this project?
It's just for the hell of it. This kind of stuff I do is kind of like recreational coding. It's kind of stuff I do outside other things. So if you want to know about more serious stuff I do, then read Matthew's essay.
Serious.
It's more like maybe you have a problem.
No, I just wanted to, and I wanted to be able to make my own scripting language and just play around with the guts of a simple video system. That was it.